Return of the Japanese dragon. Who should care about? What is the history of Japanese dragons? Japanese dragons, known as Ryu or Tatsu, have a rich history that is deeply intertwined with the country's mythology and folklore. The concept of dragons in Japan was heavily influenced by cultural exchanges with China, Korea, and the Indian subcontinent. The style and appearance of Japanese dragons were particularly influenced by the Chinese dragon, especially the three-clawed long dragons. Japanese dragons are typically depicted as large, wingless, serpentine creatures with clawed feet. They are often associated with water deities or kami, linked with rainfall and bodies of water. The oldest Japanese textual references to dragons can be found in the Kojiki and Nihongi, ancient myths and histories dating back to around 680 AD and 720 AD, respectively. These texts mention several ancient dragons, including Yamada no Orochi, an eight-headed and eight-tailed dragon slain by the god of wind and sea, Susanoo; Watatsumi or Ryujin, the ruler of seas and oceans, capable of changing into human form; Toyota Mahime, Ryujin's daughter, who was an ancestress of Emperor Jimmu, Japan's legendary first emperor; Wani, a sea monster, is translated as both shark and crocodile. Japanese dragons are also known for their ability to metamorphose, lengthen their bodies, or even become invisible. They can take on human appearance and are often portrayed in water through Japanese artworks. In summary, Japanese dragons have a rich and diverse history, with their myths amalgamating native legends with imported stories from other Asian cultures. They continue to be a significant part of Japanese culture and folklore. Welcome to my new video today. We discuss Return of the Japanese Dragon. Who should care about it? Please help me to grow this channel by subscribing, commenting, showing it to your friends and giving it a like. Now let's dive into this exciting topic. Throughout history, Japan has maintained a strong military presence. Starting with the era of the Meiji Emperor, the Japanese army was feared throughout Asia. However, after the conclusion of World War II, Japan was completely disarmed and rendered powerless, akin to a dragon restrained for over a century. Nevertheless, as we transition into the 21st century, efforts are being made to liberate that formidable force. For a multitude of objectives, is Japan likely to rearm itself? And what potential ramifications would arise from such a decision? Let us ascertain the information by watching the following video. Musuhito, or known as the Meiji Emperor. He came into being during the mid-19th century, a time when the king had only symbolic authority, and all power resided with the colonial authorities. The government was commanded by the Tokugawa generals. But the Bakufu regime, which had governed the country for centuries, had suffered defeat. Similar to other Asian nations before to the Western invasion, upon assuming the throne, Emperor Meiji had a profoundly transformative philosophy. He and other factions assembled military troops to engage in a military confrontation with Tokugawa. Despite their smaller numbers, the emperor's army emerged victorious due to their superior and advanced equipment. The Meiji triumph effectively eradicated the vestiges of the shogunate's governance, therefore restoring genuine authority to the emperor. Fortunately, the Japanese people had a ruler who not only sought power but was also very intelligent. Through several innovative reforms in science and technology, Japan transformed from a primitive agrarian nation into the only Asian country at that time to embrace capitalist growth. In order to counter and prevent the hegemony of Western empires, the Meiji Emperor prioritized military reform, establishing a standardized military force for the Empire of Japan consisting of two branches. The military branches, Army and Navy, are both under the direct authority of the emperor. The Japanese Imperial Army steadily ascended to a dominant position in Asia, bolstered by its formidable military might. Japan has opted to pursue the imperial road for over 80 years, mostly due to its fast industrialization and consequent need for abundant raw resources. Due to their limited resources and frequent exposure to natural disasters, such as earthquakes, tsunamis, and storms, these people are compelled to seek resources from other nations. The most expedient method for this is to engage in acts of theft. Japan, during the Meiji Restoration, had outpaced all other Asian countries in terms of implementing reforms. The individuals gazed longingly towards mainland China, a region characterized by extensive territory, a high population density, and plentiful resources. China ultimately under the decline of a feudal government. The city implemented isolation, leading to the country's growing stagnation and unequal treaties with the West, resulting in resource deprivation and significant upheavals. Intermittent instances of rebellion, particularly during the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom's uprising against the Qing dynasty, exacerbated internal instability, hence giving Japan a military advantage when the conflict between Japan and Qing erupted in 1894 and 1895. Since Japan had contemporary weaponry, swiftly defeated the regressive and corrupt military forces of the Qing dynasty, Japan formally declared its dominance in Asia. However, the Russian-Japanese conflict that took place from 1904 to 1905 served as a pivotal moment for the Japanese army. In 1905, there was a conflict primarily between two empires, one established and the other emerging, competing for power in East Asia, particularly in the Central Highlands area of northern China. Remarkably, Japan unified into a single nation over a span of 2 years. The European Empire achieved a decisive victory over Asia. Russia was compelled to relinquish several privileges in Northeast Asia, including the Kamchatka Peninsula and the southern portion of the vast Kos-Saline Island, to Japan. Initially, it is important to note that the Japanese military reached its zenith during the Second World War, and their formidable might was a cause for concern. Japan capitalized on the period when other nations were preoccupied with fighting Germany on the European front. The Japanese swiftly exerted their influence over Korea, and swiftly gained control of the Manchurian area in northeast China, subsequently launching an invasion of the whole mainland. This campaign reached its climax in 1937 with the Nanjing Massacre, resulting in the death of 200,000 Chinese individuals. They not only slaughtered the South but also conquered the Indochina Peninsula and other Southeast Asian nations, including Indonesia. The Philippines saw that the dragon was progressively losing its ability to maintain control. The United States was compelled to take action and terminate the provision of oil assistance. Japan's mining operations will be conducted simultaneously with the relocation of the Pacific Military Base from San Francisco to Pearl Harbor, strategically positioning the Hawaiian Island Army to effectively control Japan. Upon aligning with Germany and Italy, Japan willingly entered into a perilous alliance that ultimately led to their downfall. This alliance pitted them against the United States and the Soviet Union, two formidable superpowers, as well as England, the dominant global force that had successfully subdued Germany. From both the eastern and western fronts, they shifted their focus to address Japan's role in Asia. Japan had a series of defeats and lost its colonial holdings in Southeast Asia, China. The unexpected assault on Pearl Harbor inflicted significant damage against the United States Navy. The occurrence was a brief emission of light that swiftly ceased, culminating in the detonation of two explosive devices. The United States nuclear response on Hiroshima and Nagasaki compelled Japan to surrender without conditions. This action was taken to suppress and prevent Japan's resurgence as a military power, leading the Western Alliance, headed by the United States, to compel the emperor to dismantle the armed forces. In 1947, Japan introduced a new constitution under the guidance of the United States, which included a provision that prevented the establishment of a permanent military force and the development of an army, navy, and air force. As part of the agreement, the United States would construct military installations throughout the whole nation in Japan, a nation dedicated to safeguarding its national security and defense against potential threats. General Douglas MacArthur, the U.S. commander in Japan, assumed the responsibility of overseeing and executing these requirements, while the political community conservatives maintain the belief that Japan needs a strong military to safeguard the nation. particularly in light of the Korean War that occurred from 1950 to 1953. Furthermore, there is a burgeoning force emerging in Asia, namely China. After enduring the ravages caused by imperialist nations and the Communist Civil War, the country achieved formal independence in 1949. Subsequently, China has seen significant progress and established a strong foundation for its own growth. Over the course of many decades, China has a formidable military capability derived from historical adversaries and maintains a close alliance with the United States. China perceives Japan as an enduring menace. Although Japan is no longer a relevant presence, military or security skills for protection or safeguarding. In 1952, the Japanese government obtained authorization from the United States to create a reserve police force of 75,000 individuals armed with light infantry weapons. This decision was driven by growing concerns about the possibility of China launching an aggressive action in July 1950. The Coast Guard was founded as a diminutive naval force. By the middle of 1952, the Police Reserve Squad underwent an expansion, increasing its size to 110,000 individuals and receiving a new name, the National Security Force. The Coast Guard was integrated into the Department of Defense. The Marine Defense Force will be based on the principle of national security. In 1955, the U.S. Air Force's Far East Air Force declared its intention to provide 85 aircraft to Japan's newly established Air Force, under the condition that Tokyo would revive its aviation capabilities. From ancient times until January 1960, Japan had a formidable military force. However, a cooperation treaty was struck between the United States and Japan, which imposed certain restrictions on the United States security forces. These forces were required to inform Japan before deploying soldiers, and were prohibited from intervening in Japan's domestic political affairs. This treaty established a relationship of collaboration between the two nations. It is imperative to provide mutual assistance. In the event of an assault on Japanese territory in 1983, the administration of Prime Minister Nakasone Yoshuhiro pledged to transform Japan into an impregnable aircraft carrier in the Pacific, seemingly in support of the United States' efforts to combat Japanese bombers. Japan is the only nation to have experienced nuclear attacks, notably from atomic bombs. Consequently, they are determined to avoid a recurrence of the events outlined in the 1956 Nuclear Energy Law. Enforce a ban on the exploration, advancement, and use of nuclear energy for any objectives that are not related to promoting peace. Japan has adhered to a stance known as the 3-0 policy since 1956, which entails refraining from having, manufacturing, or importing nuclear weapons. Nevertheless, Japan, using its advanced science and technology, continues to conduct research and use nuclear energy for civilian applications in order to safeguard national security. This nation has over 30 nuclear power facilities and enjoys worldwide recognition. Being recognized as a nation possessing nuclear energy means that Tokyo had the capability to rapidly produce this perilous weapon within a short time frame, should the precarious political situation deteriorate further. As a result of the acquisition of advanced technology and several investors, including a nuclear power plant, some politicians have made jests about Japan's potential ability to transport nuclear weapons worldwide with a mere twist of a lock. The United States acknowledged the futility of permanently restraining the Japanese dragon, because to its profound national pride and formidable economic prowess. Furthermore, they excel in representing Japan, and also play a role in curbing China's hegemonic aspirations. In 2001, Japan's defense forces were granted permission to collaborate with foreign military forces in combating terrorism. They were authorized to fully use army-grade weaponry and equipment for self-defense purposes. Additionally, the defense forces stationed along the coast were granted the authority to operate big ships, operating in all global maritime regions. Their primary objective is to ensure security and combat piracy. Japan's military spending remains at a mere 1% of its GDP. Nevertheless, it suffices for this nation to consistently rank inside the top 10. Japan, facing threats from neighboring nations such as China, Russia, and North Korea, consistently allocates the highest military expenditure globally. Despite this, there may come a day when Japan chooses to entirely remove its nuclear weapons. The enactment of a formal military force is imminent. The video for today has come to an end. We are grateful that you took the time to view this enlightening video. Remember to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of the most groundbreaking content. If you enjoyed watching this video, showing it to your friends, and giving it a like. Bye and have a nice day.